Bonjour, Theo. How are you doing today?
Bonjour. Great, thank you. And good morning in Singapore.
And good morning in Singapore, and I don't know, good night in London. It's day 3 of Money 2020 in Asia. I'm so happy, first of all, that we managed eventually to see each other, or to meet in person, in the real life.
Yes.
What is that, the real life? We've been connected for so long on the likes of Twitter and LinkedIn. So I'm not going to use the word, but you're very well known, you're very active on social media, so people know you, know your expertise. But could you please talk about who you are? And we'll talk about more precisely about Unconventional Ventures in a second. But who is Theo?
I'm a troublemaker.
Starting well.
So, yes, exactly. I'm honest. So I actually was never in banking, unlike most of our friends in the digital and in real life world. So my background was engineering and IT. So I did that for many years. I used to look at how do we leverage technology to improve customer experience, right? And so back in the old days, we call it 360-degree customer view, which I think some people still use it. But in essence, is thinking about how do you leverage technology to make everything smoother, everything more seamless, everything easier for consumers. And I did that for about 20 years. And I realized, wow, just creating systems, tearing down systems, creating more systems, and tearing more of them down in telco world was, I needed a change. It just so happened I took a little break. I had kids.
Congratulations.
And thank you. I had 2 of them, wonderful. And then I got a fresh start. I ended up doing operations for a startup, a health tech startup in New York. Did that for a while, and then I got an opportunity to join a nonprofit organization in the U.S. It looks at the well-being of people as they get older, and I led the Fintech innovation initiatives over there. So we created the ecosystem from scratch, and I just got hooked to it. And a few years after, I left and started Unconventional Ventures.
So that's fascinating. So again, not coming from banking, so it's a fresh angle as well, approach, point of view, because we need that. As you said, a lot of people like who are influential online. They've been within the industry for so long, so maybe it's about time to have different views and different train of thoughts. Unconventional Ventures, so you're based in DC now, first of all,
Yes.
which is almost irrelevant considering you're traveling the world on weekly basis or at least monthly basis. What is Unconventional Ventures? What's the link with fintech and with, let's say, health tech or transforming lives of over 50 years old?
Yep. So a little backdrop on why the name Unconventional Ventures. Is because the things that we want to do are unconventional. Typically, if you think about technology innovation, you think about fintech, you think about all of that startup space, is primarily looking at what most other people want to do, right? Everything is the same, is looking for the next shiny new toy, is looking for a gadget for millennials. How do banks get millennials to be interested in their services? Ooh, we need to set up coffee shops. But what I am more interested in is how do we use technology to improve the well-being of everyone, not just a particular segment, and that's why we call it Unconventional Ventures. So we started a little over a year ago, and with the idea that everyone should have a chance to try and be successful, regardless of where they're from, regardless of their age, their gender, socioeconomic backgrounds, and all of that. Because throughout my time working with startups, one of the biggest challenge I've noticed is I would have female founders that come and say, I need connections to VC network because they're not connected to many of them. I would have startup founders from middle of the country that says, we have no access to resources, to funding, to coding resources, we need help. It's just like what everyone knows, right? A lot of the opportunities are still very much focused on the major cities, the coastal areas, but talent is everywhere, right? And opportunity is not. So that's the main foundation or the main belief that we have when we founded Unconventional Ventures. And so if you look at that, then the themes of the things that we do obviously is around longevity, is around inclusion, it's around how do we help female founders, how do we create solutions to help older people, but also to look at from a fintech startup perspective, are there different ways that we can do different business models so that in banking services, we are not just looking at gathering deposits. There is much more we can do.
So that's fascinating. So to be very clear, we're not exclusively talking about banking or financial services. It's much broader what it is you're doing at the moment. It's more
Slightly
connecting
broader.
technology, essentially, and how to use technology to build a better world and to give access, to give a chance to pretty much anybody. Yeah.
Exactly. I'll give you an example. So when we think about, people call it age tech. I don't typically say that because then it just limits your thinking, right? But if you're thinking about technology that helps older people, you can think about using AI, for example, to create different solutions for wealth management. You can think about using AI and IoT to create solutions around the house to detect if the older person has gotten out of the bed, how often, and all of that, and to use data analytics to perhaps predict a certain health condition that you couldn't do before, right? So when we think about technology, a lot of times we tend to think about shiny new gadgets, but there's a whole lot more things we can do with it.
That's pretty much as well, or that used to be at least the definition of innovation departments as well, shiny new gadgets. I used to be in innovation at Lloyd's TSB back in 2007 and 2008, which is ancient now, which wasn't even the innovation we know now, and which wasn't as close as the senior management as we see now in banks. So the world has changed in the last 10 years.
It's changed.
You know that better than anyone.
Now it's like petting zoos.
Yes. But an interesting bit, you talked about almost IoT then, and connected devices. So with 5G coming, is it a topic you're mostly interested in and you talk about? What it's going to unleash in terms of opportunities, especially within the age tech or the older part of the market? And
So
is it going to change lives basically soon?
Potentially, not soon. So coming from telecom, I know how hard it is to get infrastructure set up. I went through basically from landline, I don't even know if anyone used landline anymore, to the slower mobile and to faster mobile and LTE and 4G and all that stuff. Upgrading infrastructure.
Sorry, I'm sorry. It's really a bad idea. It's my fault. So I'll tell you.
So upgrading infrastructure takes a lot of time, right? So while the technology might be available and it might be feasible just to have everything in place and then to update all of your hardware, it will take a few years. So I think it will be promising for solutions such as autonomous vehicle. But taking it back closer to reality, things such as smart speakers, right? The ability to use voice to communicate is something that is fascinating. I think something that will be very promising. There has been multiple studies being done with having Alexa speakers in old people's home, in nursing homes, or even just in home where people choose to age independently. Having a device there that you don't really need to learn how to use, but you can talk to it to get weather information, to get jokes, or to be connected to your loved ones instead of having to go and figure out how to use my cell phone if in fact you have charged it. Things like that is things that we don't think about, that it could be a companionship, not to replace human, obviously human is still important, but to have something there when a human is not readily available, I think is promising.
Okay. No, I would agree. Yeah. Of course, like from a younger generation, we also see, especially in the industry, the challenges or the risks around data, around like spying on you and using that data to sell that data sometimes, maybe in an anonymized way, but still. And what's the value for me? But anyway, it's fascinating. And when I talk to some of our friends, like from the industry, like Jim, a few months ago, and he was really proud to say he's got he's got Google, he's got Alexa, he's got like Amazon, he's got all of them. So it's fascinating.
I run out of them at home too.
Oh, you have as well.
Yeah. I love tech. And then my two little kids like it, but it's really interesting to see different generations interacting with technology, and I think they will just be the ones that will just take it for granted.
You reckon? If we go back here, we travel back in time to the moment here. Let's do some mindfulness, right? We're at Money2020 Asia, so you're a I'd say not alumni, but you're a veteran of. You work very closely with Money2020, I believe, so all over the world. We know they've got the US, they've got Europe, and they've got Asia. What's your involvement here? I think you had a couple of activities or sessions you were involved in.
Yeah.
So could you please tell us a tiny bit more about that?
Yeah, I have a couple
One of
sessions.
them is a bit stealth or secret, so I know you can't say too much. But anyway, that's for today. But please, yeah, as much as you can share, please do.
Yeah. So we had a really interesting session earlier this week. It's the reverse pitch. So instead of startups pitching to VC, we flipped the table and have VCs pitching to startups on why they should take their money. So that one was interesting because you don't see a lot of those. And then we had another session that was talking about Google's HSBC's journey into the cloud with Google. So that's also interesting because cloud strategy is something that a lot of banks are thinking about, right? And a lot of people are thinking, well, you know, what should we think about from a risk management perspective, from a data access perspective? And HSBC is a beautiful example. They operate in 67 different countries and jurisdiction. And so for them to be able to pull it off, I think it gives hope for other financial institutions to do it. So we had a great chat, and today I'm going to be speaking in the Rise Up program. It's a new program that they just started in Money2020 Asia. They had the first cohort in Vegas, and it's a special selective group of ladies that are in the program, and we have a small team of us that's mentors, and so we will continue with the interaction and the connection, and I'll be talking to them today about transitioning from corporate life to entrepreneurship, and then how to stand out in a sea of suits.
Okay, well that seems amazing. I wish I could attend, but I think I can't.
I think it was closed door. Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. So, despite being here now in Asia, that's a global group of women, right? So they're not just exclusively Asian or Singaporean in that case, yeah.
Yep.
So that seems like an interesting program.
And that's what I love about, if you look at even all the sessions that we have done, right? And meeting you and everyone else, it's global. I think the definition of a region, of a community has changed. Even in the US, when we talk about community banks, what does a community mean? Now that everything is digital and everyone is traveling, and you have Twitter and social media, LinkedIn, internet has transformed the way we think.
It's a fair question, yeah. It's a bit like, what does an influencer mean when you think about it? Like, not much. Sorry, it's a private joke. We won't talk too much about that. I know you don't want to be called influencers. But that would be the topic of doing versus just, advising. So yes, so I know that influencers, again, is an interesting topic you're opinionated about. And even if we don't talk about influential terms, we're still, again, lucky, I think, to be part of a group of kind of like-minded people who are trying, modestly for some, to change the industry and to open up the thinking of banks, financial institutions, and so on and so forth.
I'm grateful for the community. I mean, there are amazing people out there and great ideas. I learn from them every day.
Exactly, yeah. And even Instagram, you learn from some of them. But if we talk now, so from influencers, and that's people putting people into boxes. Women in fintech. Do you have a view on that?
I don't like labels, but yeah.
That's why I'm asking. I mean, you're in favor of course, I guess equality, like anything else. But whether you're blue, you're white, you're male, female, that doesn't really matter, right? It's all about giving people, anybody, a chance to succeed in life. Sorry.
I'm waiting until he passes.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
That's a dog, yeah.
He's a little
I know
bad.
they're busy, but what the fudge? I mean, yesterday.
I think they're transitioning breakfast.
That's why.
That's probably why.
Yesterday was perfect.
All right, good. That's okay. Don't worry. All right, good.
Okay, so yes, women in fintech. I know that's a topic of putting people in boxes that you don't necessarily agree with. Or?
Because I think there are so many boxes, right? When we think about diversity, a lot of times we jump straight to gender. But gender is only one of the many aspects of it. So I'll tell you a story. A couple of months ago, I was playing with my two kids, 6 and 9 years old. And I put a bunch of different Lego pieces in a jar, and I gave it to them, and I said, what do you guys see? My 9-year-old boy, he looked at it and said, well, I don't know, different colors, different shapes. And because there were some that are little circle in pieces, some are square, some are irregular shapes, I picked different colors, transparency. And then my daughter looked at it and she said, and she's 6 years old. I still remember this. She said, it's a jar of hope. And I wrote a post about it afterwards, because if you think about it, it is a jar of hope. It is the fact that recognizing doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter the shape, the form, the color, and all of that. You can use those different pieces to create something beautiful, to create something irregular, not a box, right? And so when we think about gender or think about diversity, it's the same thing. Diversity could be a diversity of thoughts, diversity of socioeconomic backgrounds, diversity of personality, right? Or age. We don't talk about age. Age is like a taboo thing, you know? God forbid you're 50 and you're a woman. Good luck. I will see you. You should go to a retirement home.
You mean you're talking about Hollywood, right? And the movie industry especially.
Yes, there's that, right? So everywhere we go, there's so much of an age bias. You know, we typically think of startup founders as someone who's 24-year-old, you know, white male wearing a hoodie from California. But the truth cannot be further from that, right? Most entrepreneurs actually from Huffman, they did a study last year. Half of new entrepreneurs in the US are over the age of 45, right? And it's fascinating, but these are things that we don't talk enough about. And if you think about it, if you are forming a group, if you are in a company, organization, bank, fintech, or whatnot, you need someone that are of different backgrounds, different thinking, different age, different everything to be able to create something that can serve everyone. If you look at the world, right, it's full of different faces, people from everywhere, all corners, and that's what I love about DC. It's a boiling pot, and you cannot just expect to have a group of homogeneous people and think, well, I can create something for the world. It doesn't work like that. You're serving a fraction of the world.
And I totally concur with you, but to me that is the most fundamental problem or challenge is the very way organizations are recruiting, the very way, you know, and we talk about corporate culture, but that's a topic I find not even fascinating. I find it just, the term is odd because let alone with big organizations, most of them struggle because again, recruitment, they don't recruit the right people. They've got like like framework for recruit exactly boxes and whereas when I've always recruited, I'm personally interested in attitude, much more than technical skills, right, or education, which are important. But in countries like France, for instance, it's still very much driven by what schools you went to, you attended. Yeah. Doesn't mean you're the best person in the world. Doesn't mean you could manage people. You could be brilliant. That's another challenge. You could be amazingly intelligent, and yes, not be a good people manager. Yeah. But we're still in that, especially in larger organizations, we're still in that, you know, like that context whereby...
Because there is comfort in labels.
Exactly, it's still, that's... So anyway, so that's something that needs to change over and beyond tech. I'm not sure how soon, how it could change, even like in those systems.
167 years, according to
157, yeah.
167, yeah.
Well, exactly, so we might be long gone, who knows, in new health tech, but...
I think my grandkids might see it.
Yes. But what you said, your kids, it's a lovely story. I mean, your daughter saying that, it's very mature as well for her age. 6 years old, you said, yeah?
Yes, we try. So, for example, we have all the smart speakers at home. I make it a point to change the voice of the smart speakers when we got them. So, for example, our one of them is actually a male Irish accent.
To have them getting used
just
to other accents.
Just to get used to, right? And again, this is the unconscious bias creeping in, right? Why is it that we create all these things and getting a younger generation to get used to barking orders at a woman?
Right.
It's unconscious.
No, you're right, exactly. Personally, I don't have them actually. I should probably try even just for, like curiosity, and I love tech as well, so I'm like you, and gadgets. But I would go for like the Samuel L. Jackson voice if that's available, like something. Hey, dude, like.
Or Bradley Cooper.
Okay. He speaks French very well, you know, he's a well-traveled man. And but yeah, no, thank you so much for your time, Theo. It was amazing meeting you in person, so I feel very blessed, and catching up with the gang as well yesterday. I wish you all the best, even that you don't need it. We'll catch up hopefully in London sooner than later, because you're back in next month or in a couple of months. And in the meantime, I wish you like a great conference in the horrible destination, Santo Domingo in the Caribbean. That sounds like terrible, but good luck with that. Thank you so much, Theo. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much for having me, Maxi.